Perfect, thank you. So welcome everyone to this. Sorry, just muted so it's the noise doesn't appear in the recording. So again, welcome everyone to the Harmonized Terminologies uh, and Schemas for Fair Data in Material Sciences and Related Domains working group session, where we're hoping to update you and get some community feedback. So with that, a brief welcome for the people that might be new to RDA. These are the 6 guiding principles that are at the very heart of the community, and you can find also all the links with more information on that in the collaborative notes document that we have shared. So welcome to this working group session. These are the details of the working group co-chairs and myself. So my name is Athena, I work for RDA Europe and the RDA Tiger project, and I'm the working group facilitator. And with us today representing the working group are Gerhard Goldbeck, Zachary Trott, Masashi Ishii, Juan Rio, and I think Marek, if he was able to make it, and also representatives from the Fair Mappings working group who will present their work as well. And with that brief intro in the agenda, we're going to start with an overview of the working group streams, so the documents that we have been working and the progress so far. So stream A, a presentation update and community feedback. Moving on to stream B with a presentation update and community feedback. We're going to move over to the Fair Mappings updates, and Jonas will present that, who's with us today. Moving on to stream C, kickoff and community feedback, and finally a wrap up with the future outlook and the next steps. So with this very brief introduction, I'm going to hand over to Zachary, who can start with the overview of the working group streams.
Thank you, Athena, and welcome everyone. Next slide. So just in case we have new people to the working group, the overall objectives of the working group are to collect and review existing semantic assets, to propose and verify best practices for practitioners, data stewards for fair data principles, identify needs for harmonization, and to demonstrate implementation of new semantic assets, with the ultimate goal on the far right of increasing the uptake of the fair data principles in chemistry and materials research. Next slide, please. So our planned outputs, and these map to the 3 streams, more or less, is a review and fair maturity assessment of existing semantic artifacts, and basically defining a fair maturity model for people who are authoring those things. And we're, of course, leaning heavily on existing work on fair maturity. But the main goal of that first output is to elevate the fairness of semantic artifacts themselves. Next is best practice recommendations targeting the data stewards, or if so inclined, people working in material science and engineering, but best practices aimed at the materials and chemistry domain, keeping in mind that materials science and chemistry is significantly more complicated than other domains. And finally, new harmonized semantic artifacts. Next slide. And we did come up with a rough Gantt chart for progress. And as usual, we're a little bit behind, but our 3 streams are sort of aligned. Milestones are aligned with the plenary meetings, with the hope that we'll be mostly wrapping up for International Data Week. And there's a link to this Gantt chart if you want to zoom in and look at it in Google Docs. Next slide. And I just have a zoomed in view if you want to view it from the slide deck online. Next slide. So handing it over to Gerhard. Thank you, Athena.
Turn on the mic. Yeah. Okay. Hope you can hear me. I'm going to give an overview of Stream A, which is, as we just heard, the collection, review, and fair maturity assessment. the existing semantic artifacts. I just got a couple of slides in terms of the of where we are. One is the status and then the actions. What we have done and achieved so far together is we reviewed the FAIR indicators and recommendations from previous studies. In particular, we iterated, we adopted existing recommendations, but also introduced subcategories for metadata identifiers regarding repositories, APIs and protocols for working with the semantic assets have been highlighted, then licensing policies, and another one, formats and standards, provenance, mappings, and alignments. From the discussion as well, for me, reviewing where we are, the following items stand out and should be discussed and elaborated further by the working group. The first one is domain semantics. The generic recommendations refer to the use of canonical vocabularies, terminologies, and references. That has come up also and highlighted in a number of the indicators and recommendations. There should be a rich mapping to other semantic assets, a connection to well-known top and middle ontologies, a rich metadata about the usage of the semantic assets and its limitations. So this is again the usage within a certain domain or a certain context, and the provenance of the terms and concepts and their definitions. So all of this I put together and cut into this topic, domain semantics, and how do we deal with domain semantics going forward. The next one is repositories. The recommendations, for example, is that the semantic assets are indexed in a searchable resource. On the other hand, and also complementing that, a recent paper has been highlighted on called a maturity model for catalogs of semantic assets, semantic artifacts. That states that a catalog is a critical system. And the third point are serializations. So in real life, we have to work with things in certain implementation, serialization. So there should be a bit more discussion now on which serializations should be provided and must be provided. So there are, again, a few discussion points in the shared notes. But there is not yet an agreement on what is a should and what is a must be, what is it kind of a nice to have, a must have. And then if we go to the next slide on the actions, again, my take on things up for discussion, of course, obviously we need general textual improvements, resolve discussion items, that's clear, yeah. But again, focusing on the three aspects above, in the point domain semantics, we need to provide a longer text and an elaboration, and then that also links them to stream C. So I don't think in stream A we can really in the end resolve the question of the domain semantics, but it's actually part of stream C work. So that ties in with that, but it's a very important point. The repositories. Now, if we go to that recent paper and the review of catalogs, it includes in our area, or let's say of relevance to materials and cognate domains, it includes Map Portal. Well, I looked at Map Portal, it's currently down. It includes fair sharing. If I look at that, there is currently no actual material science semantic asset in fair sharing. All of the other catalogs in that review paper are outside of material science. So we have a problem, right? What are the actions that we need to address that? Is it to work with Map Portal, to work with fair sharing, to improve that? Is it other solutions? What to do? That's up for discussion. The third is serializations. So I think here clearly there's a need of some experts in the serialization to come up and work together, maybe in a smaller group, smaller team meeting, to work up these recommendations, ideally with examples. So that's where we are right now, but hopefully that will also trigger some discussions from from the community. So yeah, here we have the document link, collection review. So if you would like to add something there, of course, and also to our collaborative notes. If you have any viewpoints on these items, please let us know.
Yes. No.
So Gerhard, we have about 12 minutes to sort of in detail talk through the StreamA document. And either you could share or Athena could share the document.
Yeah.
And we can you can talk in detail where you want a little extra input or people to focus.
Mm-hmm.
This one will be.
We are working on the sharing here now, so maybe I can share it
I think is this one. Is this shared now? Maybe not.
Yeah, I can see your screen. Just need to pick the right tab for StreamA document.
Document. No, not this one. Yeah, I think we're going to share yours.
That's something, yeah, you can see it now, right?
Yes.
So if we go to thank you to the point on the digital on the serializations. Or let's see here on the domain. So comprehensive representation of per domain communities knowledge, reference established canonical source terminologies. So this is the question, you know, what is it? What can we reference here? Yeah. So one idea, of course, we could reference some of the existing ontologies that you know have been discussed. We've just also been here at an event together where a lot of these have been discussed. We can reference the vocabularies from Korea. So one possibility here could be to basically make a preliminary list here, but in the end it comes back to the question of the repository, right? So when I search for that, we have also a few things listed here. But then you know the indexing in the search room for resource semantic artifacts in the content should be published in an appropriate semantic repository. So that's fine as a generic a generic point. it would seem, I think we had already some offers from the community from fair sharing. I think it was also pointed out by Alice and Lister, I think previously, that we could have the use of fairsharing.org for that, which has which is a little bit independent, let's say, of the domain, which is also in a way maybe a good thing. But and it's quite simple to use, quite flexible to use. So it's not just for ontologies and so on. So that could be one aspect that we do here, and that we use as a recommendation. And I believe it's also projects that are that have a support from the RDA community more widely than a specific portal from a specific project like Map Portal, which at the moment is really reliant on specific projects going on in Germany. So here, this would be my take on things, recommendation in a way. Maybe we should go with something neutral, likely to be longer term, like fair sharing. But then that would be then the recommendation. Of course, it would need in the end the response from the community to upload the relevant thematic artifacts there. Then on the on the mappings to other semantic assets, here we will have a bit more on the fair mapping as well. We have a separate item on the agenda today. So I would say here we have to work together with the other working group in that field to update our recommendations here and maybe have some examples of that and how that is addressed in our field. Well-known top and middle ontologies. Again, I would like to be a bit more specific here than to say well-known. The current state of the art, again confirmed at this meeting, is that there are 2 top-level ontologies that are now used in the community. This is BFO and MO. So again, I would like to be a little bit more specific and say the connection to, of course, to be generic, let's say, but would say the connection to well-known and established top and middle ontologies, which currently are MO and BFO. Yeah? So again, being more specific for our field in the recommendations, at least reflecting the current state, I think would be helpful to those that use the recommendations. Then comes the serialization. The metadata must be serialized as RDF, CSS, and JSON /preferred turtle or RDF. It's a little bit hard here with the scrolling, but if there was a comment on this. Yeah, here, for example, I can't see the whole. Oh, maybe I have to use the script. The suggestion from Marta, who was here but now isn't, is to provide all these serializations for a given semantic asset. Yeah. So is that something we should take up? So it's already kind of said here must be available as, but then here is with an or. Yeah? So is this or that, or is this and that? Yeah. And then there were some discussions about the PNG format here as well, whether that is appropriate and useful, and so on. So this is what led me then to say, okay, we need to get the people that made these comments and maybe other people here together in a smaller meeting to agree on the final recommendation for that.
Mhm.
Yeah. The MOE is in fair share. Okay, maybe I missed that. Very good. So, but then that's also a good start. If that's yeah, Jonas is.
Yeah, is it okay to comment?
Yes, yeah, please, yeah.
Yeah. So I agree with the comment about the being or serving all of those RDF serializations, but because the technical aspect there is very, very small. And then when it comes to this, I kind of like understand this image format, for example, for the semantic assets. This was the same kind of. I'm guessing that the reason for this is similar to the reason why so I'm working with the metadata schema and crosswalk registry, and we needed to add PDF as one of the crosswalk formats because that is how it has been done for a long time. So you have some kind of a textual description of how this and the only output maybe that has survived some kind of mapping process is that PDF, but I'm considering that as a starting point. So that's the version 1 or 0.1, and then you realize that okay, so I can't use this easily. Then you are maybe incentivized to create a 0.2, which is something that you can actually process more easily. And also, if you could just scroll up a little bit about the mappings, I wanted to say that those things that you are describing here are definitely something are very well aligned with the goals and outputs of the FAIR mappings working group. So hopefully you will be following that at least on some level, and we should definitely collaborate on this.
Yeah, exactly. It's a question of not one is the collaboration. The other is how when we have the final documents about the recommendations, how we link these points over across to maybe a wider, more detailed set of recommendations in your area from your working group. So but that's I mean we should be able to hopefully we should be able to do that. So yeah.
Yeah, and also as it seems that your timetable is, if you said that you will be trying to wrap up around the next plenary, was that the timetable of the working group? And if you come up with some kind of like concrete examples of these mappings and the representations, then I think that would work as a really good input for the FAIR mappings working group. So I will be presenting the kind of things that we're doing. So, but there's one of them is this case study collection. So if you come up with these mappings, then I think that would be an ideal input for that. So that's one concrete way of affecting or having this kind of collaboration.
Yes. Yeah. Any other comments from anyone? If not, then I will stop the sharing and maybe we should continue with the next point.
Yeah. If you want, Athena, I'll just go ahead and share.
Oh, okay, Zach, no problem. Might be better because you also do the document then.
Righty. Although that. All right, Stream B. Does the slides look okay? Great. So the stream B is structured around, what we chose to do was structure stream B around a data life cycle. So we proposed these categories: plan, acquire, process, analyze, preserve, and share, and presented those at the last plenary. And there was rough consensus that those were fine. And we think about the document is structured around what researchers or data stewards can do at each step of the data lifecycle to sort of support the fair data principles for data as it's generated. And we think about how semantic assets impact each stage of the data lifecycle. Many of the sections within the text have text explaining the recommendation. Some sections need text or clarification from who proposed the item, and all sections need resources, which may be listed in the existing resources preparatory. And I'll talk through these once we get to the document. And so the things that I'd like to try to do today, time notwithstanding, is review the document outline and think about additions and revisions, resolve any discussion items, add an outline at a minimum for recommendations that are still empty, and just general text improvements. And this might be an offline activity, but adding resources for each recommendation. So go ahead and open up the Stream B document, and I will do the same. Are folks able to see me sharing the Stream B document?
Yes, right there.
Perfect. So the first thing I'd like to point out or review is this document is about helping the community use semantic assets as a researcher is going through a data lifecycle. We created this figure sort of showing that the fair data principles in essence are applicable to each point in the data lifecycle. And we structure our recommendations around that. And the best way to sort of review or view the outline is you can open up this sort of navigation view in a Google Doc, and you can see that we have a section for planning, and you can see all the sort of recommendations in planning. So finding data, data management plan, searching for existing resources. So the first question I posed to the group is to review sort of the outline. So quickly take a look at what sort of kinds of recommendations we have under planning, data acquisition, data processing, data analysis, data preservation, and data sharing. And I'd ask the question, at a very high level, is anything missing? And since I showed everyone the way you can sort of view the outline, I'll scroll through the document and invite people to speak up if they would like to react. So under planning, we need to draft an outline for finding data. Data management plan, there's text written. Searching for existing semantic assets, there's text written. Creating data dictionaries, physical samples, research code, equipment, and instruments. And I think this is a place where we can certainly recommend persistent identifiers. Over into data acquisition, leveraging programmatic interfaces and automation, automating metadata collection, collecting other metadata. This one needs description from the proposal, access control and ownership, provenance. Some of these things need work, and provenance appears in multiple points of the data lifecycle. So we'll need to think about, do we want to talk about that once or in multiple places? And data processing, a recommendation to use non-proprietary formats, extracting data if that's not possible, what to do when we're extracting data and metadata from opaque or proprietary formats. Does everybody sort of know what's sort of being said with opaque file formats that aren't necessarily proprietary, but just difficult to deal with? Mapping keywords to semantic assets, it'd be great to get some insight from the proposer of what that means. Automating data pipelines or workflows over to provenance, or provenance again, over to data analysis. Provenance appears again. Oh, that's strange. The font is different. Oh no, sorry. So under analysis, we have making analysis and visualizations reproducible, as well as provenance. I apologize, I got thrown off by the font. Under data preservation, data documentation is hashed out versioning. And when we get to data sharing, these ones haven't been hashed out, but I think they're pretty well defined in other places. So let me stop there. And does anybody want to react? Is there any general discussion? Hearing nothing, I'll get more specific. And oh look, we're doing pretty well on time. Oh, I heard someone.
Yeah, sorry. Wanted to raise my hand, but it's Gerhard.
Yeah, I apologize. I can't see hands up.
There is already a comment on on ELNs, I think, whether to include it, and I think we really need to include the use of yeah ELNs or similar systems here into, well, I don't know, probably into one of the sections, right? I guess into the acquire section.
Okay. So does this go?
Sorry, I can do the ELN part.
Okay.
I have quite some experience with that, so sorry for being mostly muted.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, because I think it's a tool, but it's also, I would describe it more generally as a methodology now, and with a lot of tools available for that, which are also you know, quite a wide range of them. The other point maybe to add, and I can maybe add it myself, is that how are the how the ELN is linked to the semantic assets, yeah.
Yes, but it's in the new ELNs or the new versions of ELNs that's more and more dealt with. So I'm also communicating it with Simon Stier, so I know even these directions more and more. Not yet expert, but will do my best to communicate it with him. The semantics in these kind of tools and methodology.
Yeah.
This is Kwang Myul. I think it's nowadays many laboratories start to build autonomous lab. So I think they have some kind of way to automatically collect, retrieve the data from the equipment and from the research workflow. So I think that should be also aligned with semantic.
It's not only out.
We need to also include all those activities in this section.
It's not only in autonomous lab. We are automating the data and usually technical or a little bit of provenance metadata in a less fancy systems to pretty much every bigger instrument in our institute. So yeah, again, I can add it. Sorry for I didn't do it before.
And one thing I'd personally like to bring to the table at a future meeting, working group meeting or monthly meeting, is there's a lot of discussion or work going on in, I think, in LIMS, either at the commercial level or the open source level. But I'd like to make sort of the point of the difference between a LIMS, laboratory information management system, and SLIM, systems for laboratory information management, where I think of systems for laboratory information management as sort of little microservices or small problem-specific services in a service-oriented architecture that can be bolted together like little Lego blocks in different ways, where different projects might have different data management needs, wherein sort of it's unrealistic to have a full stack LIMS that solves every problem. So I'll put that in as something I'd like to talk about at a future meeting. And I sort of think of it as SLIM versus LIMS. And I personally see value in conceptualizing data management systems as sort of an ecosystem of microservices that can be composed in different ways to solve different problems depending on the use case. Are there other reactions to discussion on ELNs and LIMS? Are there any general reactions to this document? Any root level bullets to add to the page in terms of reactions? And if anybody's raising their hand, I can't see. Okay, so hearing nothing, if possible, I'd like to go through and if we, since we have 5 minutes, probably not map out bullets, but at least people can sort of volunteer or suggest their ability to work on sections that are empty or needing text to be added. Is there anybody who'd be interested in working on within the data planning phase of a research project, working on finding data? If so, maybe put a note in the document that you're willing to work on it. But this one needs some work. And of course, all of these, please read them and react. I think many of them I took a first attempt at writing something. I'll ask about this crossing out. I'm proposing to delete purchasing, and just the section header is about instruments and equipment more generally, where it could be existing equipment or equipment that you're purchasing. Any objections to deleting this?
No objections, support.
Okay, I'll go ahead and do that. And if there is an objection, we can always put it back and talk about it. Collecting other metadata. Is the proposer of this subsection in the room, and can they explain it? We can come back to that in a monthly meeting. Access control and ownership. Does anyone have any thoughts, reactions, or volunteering to help write out this section? And we can just highlight these as things to think about or work on in a future meeting. Provenance, as I mentioned, this appears in a few places. So we'll have
Yeah.
to think about what to do.
Zach,
Go ahead, Merrick. Yeah.
Zach, I added to chat. Sorry, I'm in a busy
Oh, no problem.
bistro, so noisy. I will add the text to provenance, and please keep it in more places because there are specific issues with provenance when you speak about the data acquisition or processing or analyzing. So please keep it in all three places.
Wonderful. Thank you, Merrick. And I'll 2 more minutes.
There is even ISO for how to do provenance now, which was approved last year, so we can use that for provenance.
Awesome. Mapping keywords to semantic assets. I didn't quite know what that means. Do folks on the call have an idea or a reaction?
I have an idea what it means. So this is one of the mapping types that we've been discussing. So basically, when you have just a string and you want to, and this is, I think, borderline if it's a mapping or a semantic annotation. So you map or link that string into something that has well-defined semantic meaning. It could be a class, it could be a property, it could be a concept, for example. Or actually anything. It could be an organization, and so on. But this is a borderline mapping in my opinion.
Wonderful, thank you. All right. I think we have a few sections on workflow that need a little work. Does anybody want to react to workflows or data processing pipelines? And I see on the clock it's 10:50, so I'm gonna go ahead and stop here, and we will transition over to the FAIR mappings presentation. Thank you for all the contributions to Stream B.
Thank you, Zach. So yes, I will be telling you guys about a little bit about the kind of like the giving an introduction to the working group in general, and then I will be focusing on what we've been doing for the past. I mean, it has been endorsed since February, but we've been working on this for, I mean, since Salzburg, the P23 was it, or something like that from Salzburg, and I'm hoping that you weren't in our FAIR mappings session, because this has been stitched together from the material in that session. So hopefully you haven't seen this or seen the parts. So the motivation for the FAIR mappings, I've tried to summarize it here. So the symptoms of not having FAIR mappings is usually that those mappings, they can be hard to find. They can be in version control systems or in PDFs or anywhere. And then when you find them, it might be difficult to evaluate them because you don't know who did which part and where did it came from or something like that. And they also might require substantial work before they can be used for automated processing. So this is one of the examples here was the PDF format that we discussed earlier. And then, as we have seen while we've been talking about the mappings, there can be unforeseen communication problems when people talk about the same use the same words, but they mean completely different things. So what the FAIR mappings working group is aiming to do is to help with the root causes. So basically the missing or insufficient metadata related to mappings, especially, and these ad hoc representation formats. So for example, spreadsheet, crosswalk spreadsheets, can come in different shapes and sizes, and you might not know the semantics behind that particular format, and also the ambiguous terminology. So the planned deliverables are that so there's going to be, or there is already published technical and methodological recommendations. So here we are using the recommendations published by the Fair Impact Project as a starting point. And the idea with the working group is to expose those recommendations to the discussion and the global audience of the RDA, and solicit feedback and route that back to the maintainers of those recommendations, and maybe have new versions or additions to those recommendations based on the community feedback. And we are creating this harmonized collection of case studies, mapping case studies. So here the idea is that we will collect existing mapping cases. So we right now basically the only limitation is that so you have to be under the assumption that you're doing mappings, and you have to have those mappings available. So something that has already been done. So we're looking for that kind of cases, not something that is planned or something like that. So concrete mapping cases. But it can be basically anything that you consider a mapping. And in order to tackle the ambiguity, we are going to deliver a mapping taxonomy and maybe even some kind of simple ontology that would allow you to that you can use when you are describing your mappings, and you want to describe them well in the context of the RDA Fair Mappings Working Group world. So that's that, with that limitation, of course. And then when it comes to sharing your mappings, there are already specifications for doing that, but as we soon see, there are different kinds of mappings, and it doesn't cover all of them. So the idea is to also expand or enhance those existing exchange models so that they could cover a wider variety of mappings. And finally, we are going to deliver Fair Mappings knowledge base, which basically the idea is that would combine these other deliverables and would provide this kind of browsable and maybe even searchable knowledge base. What the format of that will be in the end, I don't know, but the idea is that would serve as a resource for people who are beginning to do mappings, to browse through and see that what others have done before, and maybe get the lingo right and so on. So those are the deliverables. And I want to zoom in a little bit to the case study collection, because that is basically the foundation of all the other, or that provides the foundation for all the other deliverables. So the classification and the ontology and the exchange models will be informed by the kind of cases that we're getting. So what the community is actually doing in terms of mappings, and we are analyzing that and putting those results into the classification and the ontology and the model. And then those case studies can also be used to hopefully to evaluate and test those recommendations and this practical framework document that also coming from the Fair Mapping project. So the case studies are extremely important part of the deliverables. And I want to show a couple of the case studies that we have collected. So we have about 20 in our GitHub pages. So there is a process that starts from a GitHub issue, and then it gets reviewed and discussed and maybe edited a little bit, and then it's published. And then when we realize that, okay, so we could maybe enhance this part of the description, then we can make another PR, and it's an iterative process. And these 3 cases, they have all been changed at least, I think, once or twice. So so we are still looking for we are making changes to the form, for example, and we're discussing what kind of things should be in a good case study description. So here are a couple of different types of cases. I wonder if you see this right now, the Mondo ontology page.
Yes.
Yes. So this is an example where there is a very good purpose of mapping section. So there, and it has been formatted so that we have these user stories. So basically there's a role and what that role wants to do with the mapping. And I think this is almost too detailed maybe, but this is a very good way to get behind the meaning why this mapping has been done, and there's even description of specific cases or like the sub cases within that, or how the mapping is used in different contexts. And yeah, this is a good one to check. And there's a sample mapping also available. Then the Mondo ontology was about mapping those ontologies, and Lunaris is a bit different kind of case. So this is about schema mappings, and the reason I wanted to highlight this is that this is a different kind of nicely contextualized case study, because we have specific systems and specific organizational context almost to where this is happening. And also one of the nice things, and that this is something I would like to incorporate to the instructions on how to report these case studies, is the example that provides not just the mapping, but it provides the source and target record. So with those three things, you have a full picture of what was the what was the start situation and how it was transformed in this case, and then what was the result. And finally, there's an iAdopt, which is a bit more difficult case, because iAdopt itself is a generic model, and it answers kind of like a use case. But this has been now worked on, and it has been turned into a set of case studies. So it now has concrete cases, and 3 of them actually. So showcasing how these different kind of mappings can be used within the context of iAdopt. So I think this is also a very nice example, and also shows how you can, through this iterative process, add these images here if you need. And I think in this case it definitely helps. And before we move on, if you are able to log into the Slido, this is a kind of warm up for the ontology or the mapping taxonomy slide that I have next. You don't have to actually. Well, it would be nice if you can do the Slido thing, but you can also shout out which one of these is the thing that you think of when you think about mapping. So is it the process of creating those correspondences, or is it the process of transforming the input data to an output data, or is it that digital artifact that that contains all the mapping rules, or whatever you want to call them, or is it an individual correspondence, or is it something else? So you can also think about it for a couple of seconds before I move on. Yeah, so so these are the 4 things that have come up within the discussions, or I mean in the group, and in different events, and in the working group meetings. So we can get back to that. I will move on in the interest of time, but you can think of this when I show the next slide. So this is the preliminary version of the ontology, and which includes this kind of small mapping categorization or taxonomy. But the basic idea is that we would separate those activities, so the mapping activity and the mapping generation, or the mapping application processes, and then the entities related to this mapping. So there could be something like mapping specification, which is the whole thing that includes individual mappings. And then we are currently thinking that these mapping specifications could have this kind of mapping category, and there are three things listed here, so schema mapping, ontology alignment, and named entity mapping as a different types of mapping categories. And this actually links nicely back to the case studies. So if we think about the schema mapping, there's another document that describes this in more detail. So I won't go into that right now, but basically the schema mapping, the idea is that you have this kind of schema or data conversion or transformation, and there are a couple of different cases. So there are three case studies that are about using that mapping to transform between two distinct schemas, and Lunaris is one of those. And then there are these cases where you basically have two versions or variants of the same schema. So you're doing subsetting. So you take a big schema and you take a subset of that and use a mapping for that. Schema normalization, which I think is a little bit like could be the two distinct schemas too, but the generic case here is kind of like aggregation type of case where you normalize these schemas into one common schema, and in this case, similar schemas into something that is shared. And there is no case for schema versioning, but that's something that we came up with. So you could have this version 1 and version 2 schemas, and you create a mapping between those to help with migrations, for example. And then you could have this kind of meta modeling type of mapping, like between formats or from kind of like technology agnostic representation into other representations. And the other big case is the documentation. So basically those are these kind of informal tables for reference. They are less useful for automated processing, but that's the other big case. And the way we are approaching this mapping taxonomy right now, so we have defined the current preliminary version based on the cases and based on the discussions that we've had, and we have created these GitHub discussions, and we have these three types or categories, mapping types there now. So the entity mapping, the schema mapping, ontology alignment, and we have opened up these discussions. We're calling it round 1. So these things can come up again under discussion if we think that's needed. So you can use the GitHub repository discussions now to give your opinion about this, and this is the way we're moving forward. So we're trying to come up with the good definitions or good names for these things, or add more items if it's needed. And the main way of doing this are those discussions and the issues. You can see that we have under the mapping commons, we have the RDA fair mappings repository. And related to the recommendations, so as I mentioned, they're published by the Fair Impact Project, and we are now hoping to collect feedback through the group activities, and I wanted to promote the one of the last remaining workshops from the Fair Impact Project. So Jan will be the one driving this thing, but they have this third, I think it's third episode of this fair mapping workshops with subtitle From Technical Recommendations to Common Practices. So that sounds really interesting, and it's in May. So please join Jan and the rest of us there to discuss the mappings and work on the common practices related to mappings. And finally, the next step. So here you can see the links to the GitHub repository and the website that has been generated. The one where I showed those highlights from. So as I said, we have this commenting round open, and we are preparing for the next plenary. So, and related to that, the idea is it would be great to provide, I mean, the move towards fair mapping implementation examples. So taking into account the recommendations and the cases, and this is actually maybe a good place to remind that those cases that we're collecting, they don't have to be fair at all. I mean, being a mapping is the only requirement, but we could use them as kind of like take the cases, think about the recommendations and the existing specifications, and make these examples how this could be made fair or fairer. And as I mentioned, the getting feedback to the recommendations. And I've been asked whether by multiple people if they should add their case or to the collection because it's so small, or I'm the only one who's working on something like that. And I've been saying that yes, because they can be big or small, simple or complex, or from different domains, or academic or from the industry. All is welcome. Yes, I think that was it. We still have a couple of minutes for comments and questions. Thank you.
So a comment just went into the chat. What about mappings that are only used internally?
I would ask, what does that mean internally?
Would you mind unmuting?
Yeah, I mean, so a mapping that is used within some project, but only in order to, for instance, to map internal representation of some data schema to some other internal thing, but it's not, say, exposed to the outside world.
But could it be, at least in theory, be exposed? Because I'm thinking, I was thinking first that this would be something that should or could never be exposed, and I think those are maybe not that interesting because they also will not ever be shared. But I think even if it's a project thing, I think it's.
I mean, to give a concrete example, if you have a metadata catalog, which has, of course, its own, say, metadata schemas, which is based on a database, something like that. And in order to expose that data side metadata, we need to map the internal representation, which corresponds to the database schema, to a data side.
Yeah.
But nobody will ever say, nobody outside that project will ever say touch that internal database representation.
Yeah, now I get it. So I think that's a very good example of something that we are looking for, because especially when it has the data side there, which is something that other people are probably also mapping to. So I would imagine that there could be cases where somebody is thinking about starting to map their things to data side, and if they can go to the knowledge base and see that okay, there are 10 different projects who have done it already with different kinds of, and they also have some custom metadata on the other side, and then you can see that okay, people are doing it and this is the way they've been doing it. So I think it's a proper case for this.
Okay, I consider that.
Thank you. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I have a question or maybe suggestion. So we have been part of this project called Onto Commons. what you may know about. And OntoCommons has developed something. Maybe I can even, if I may,
you want to share? Yeah.
Share just briefly to illustrate that. This is one of their final deliverables. So it came up with something called a bridge term. And so it's basically, even if you have different, so for example, here you have two different top level ontologies, and you have terms that have obviously a strong integration and therefore mapping from a term from top to bottom in a way, from a domain to the top. And the bridge term then explores all of the relations and mappings in this network. It uses a list of things. It's basically a table of things, including scores and so on, that explores this interaction. So the idea is that if you identify key points in a network, and so not every term should be a bridge term, but if you identify key ones that make a link between one network and another network that's already in existence, then this is what is elaborated here. Is that something that would be also part of or in the scope of what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, generally, I think as a mapping, yes. If you're thinking about the cases, I think this is a good example of the discussion that, or related to the discussion that we're having, like case studies versus use cases. So this reads more like a use case. So you have this use case where you want to identify those bridge terms, but it would be great to have a case that is contextualized in some use, and it uses some existing ontologies and provides examples of how those bridge terms look like in that ontology. That would be a great case. But otherwise, this idea of using these bridge terms, I think, is a aligned with the mapping in general. Yes.
Yeah. There were some specific cases as well, which we can have a look at, maybe bring over into the fair mapping, because I think also I see a danger of, since this was a project, of it being lost a little bit. There is also a JSON serialization of these templates. That may be a good example. The one of the reasons why it was done like that is that from an implementation perspective, to build the actual, let's say, an alignment more between two different ontologies, sometimes it's very difficult, and it depends a bit on what the actual application use case wants, and the final use case wants to do. So it's more of a series of recipes or things to remember, or relations, or that then the final implementation can use. But anyway, so we can contribute that.
Great. That sounds really nice. Thank you.
All right, so I'll go ahead and transition us over to StreamC. I can. All right, so StreamC, we basically started talking about it last month at our monthly meeting, and we started the meeting with a question to the group, and that question was, do we want StreamC to be about making new semantic artifacts, or do we recommend what new semantic artifacts are needed to fill the gaps? And the current consensus was around the latter, of recommending what is needed to fill the gaps. And there seems to be group consensus around looking in depth at schema.org and DCAT application profiles, or DCAT AP, and to make demonstrations between these high level semantic artifacts and more lower level ones, and various efforts across the globe. And one example that was given was the effort in Korea. So the StreamC actions, we already had some great discussions with the fair mapping working group, and I'd like to continue those, and then discuss this current consensus around making recommendations on what is needed to fill the gaps. So let's continue that conversation and make sure we're still happy with that consensus. And time permitting, discuss strategy and next steps for the Stream C. And so the Stream C document. Okay, so last month we worked in this part of the Stream C document, and I'd like that work to continue. So any continued discussion from the last presentation and discussion on fair mapping, feel free to unmute, and I ask my colleagues to keep an eye on if folks raise their hands or are put into chat.
Okay.
I'm not hearing anything.
Yeah, I mean, we've from our discussions, and I mean, we have discussed this before. Just to also reiterate that I believe that the DCAT and the schema.org provide some good basis that we could look at in terms of going through the metadata and identifying what are mandatory and recommended metadata. So this follows the DCAT AP, i.e. the application profile way of working. In addition, identifying which of the existing metadata can be used to annotate more material-specific, domain-specific entities. Here we can at least draw on what has been done in Korea. We could obviously we would like to mention the metadata and the schema that are there. But even if we stop short of making that a recommended or so list, we can definitely learn from the fact that or reuse the fact that for every type of materials investigation, you want to say something about the material, the process, the structure, the property, the performance, and so on. So these types of labels are inevitable when we talk about materials. So I don't see a reason why not to at least recommend that there should be annotations related to these, even if, let's say, there is a data set that does not include performance, for example. Okay, then that's a non-relevant metadata, but at least having these and having them recommended and making recommendations of what which types of actual schema and DCAT metadata can be used to make these annotations would be a big step forward.
Any other thoughts or reactions? And as I said, the community consensus is around recommending what is needed to fill the gaps. Are there any concerns or objections to that current consensus? Hearing none. Merrick, would you like to say a few words about the DCAT AP?
Well, it's maybe too early because I have a next week meeting with Jakub Klimek, who did it for geosciences. So if you can still give me some time to learn more.
Sure.
So, but what we said a month ago, sorry, Yeah, for it is somewhere in the document that the DCAD is for interoperable and reusable. And in schema.org, what would be lovely to do is to define some terms there, and that would be for findable and accessible. I think if we have it in the document somewhere defined quite clearly. So no, I apologize. I do not have yet any news.
Are you proposing extending the schema.org when you said defining
Well,
terms?
yeah. But I would take the same approach as bioschemas, which is a combination because quite a few of terms exist there. And what you can do is you can specify their meaning for the community by, so this is the preferred approach. And if the term is really missing, then you suggest to add a new term into the next version of schema.org. So that's the approach which would be the best.
Yeah, also I was wondering, even just in terms of the textual descriptions, when you say that this data set is about something, that you make recommendations what is in the about description. Yeah, so in it's just free text descriptions, but if we have already recommendations, if we make the free text description, then format it in a certain way. So I mean that's the zero level metadata approach, of course.
But this is the DCAD AP part where DCAD AP is guiding you how to do it semantically, and schema is just bringing the context.
Well, given the time, since we're about to hit 5 minutes till, I'm going to go ahead and hand over the podium to Gerhard for wrap up.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for guiding us through the discussion today. So yeah, we have reviewed this streams. Now we are just to say that we have the monthly meeting, so which we are aware of.
Masashi raised the hand.
Oh, Masashi raised the hand. Sorry. Thank you for.
Yeah, Masashi, do you raise the hand? Can you? No. Did you raise the hand? No.
Oh, I don't think so. Where was that signal?
Oh, I think. Oh, I think there was a mistake. Okay.
No
Oh,
problem.
I misunderstand. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So to remind about our regular meetings, please let's continue the discussion there. We also have the opportunity from RDA Tiger that we have support for some additional work in the area of Stream C, especially around the metadata and the schema work that we have just been discussing. So we will soon also advertise a call for experts to support that based on the RDA Tiger support scheme. So watch this space for that. Hopefully we'll get some extra resources to help us work on that. And yeah, are there any other questions about the collaborations? Please make any notes in the collaborative notes. Athena, anything from your side that I've missed?
I think it was a really good and productive session. Thanks a lot, everyone, for joining us today. So if there are any burning questions or comments for now, and if you haven't already, please join the working group. As Gerhard said, this is the space that we use to share all meeting information and all follow-ups. A lot of the work is being done offline, so you can always contribute to these documents as long as you're a member of the working group. So please feel free to do that as well. And yeah, thanks a lot. We have a couple of minutes to spare, but if there's nothing else, I think we can end slightly early and continue with plenary and also the rest of your days. I understand that some of you were engaged in meetings already today or this past few days. So yeah, thanks a lot, everyone. Hope to see you again all soon. And yeah,
Thank
take
you.
care.
And thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
bye.
everyone, for
So we'll
joining
see you
from various
around.
places.
Yeah,
See you
bye.
soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.